Just a couple of points that I'd like to make myself, and I'll bring in other members then that want to come in. But just first of all, I think there is the opportunity in terms of our islands to actually use them as pilot templates for some challenges that we have on the mainland in terms of e-health. And I recall being out in Ishboffin approximately 20 years ago when we were dealing with the health issues out there as a member of the Western Health Board. And, you know, there is an opportunity with the development of broadband now to provide very innovative new health tools, and I think the islands are an ideal template to use for the development of that technology. And yes, while there is an issue absolutely in terms of housing on the islands, there's also a challenge in terms of existing vacant property on the islands, and all of us right across the country see that firsthand in our own rural communities. And again, I think the islands could be used as a template to look at how we can overcome this particular challenge and replicate the knowledge then on the mainland. And again, in relation to the whole area of energy, I think there's huge opportunity there, and I'll come back to that in 1 second. Just to clarify one point that has been raised in relation to broadband, and the comment was made that there's no obligation to bring a fibre optic cable to the islands. Just let me make it crystal clear that under the National Broadband Plan contract, the default is fibre to every home. The contractor must justify why fibre is not being used in a particular scenario, but the default is fibre to every single home, regardless of location. Now, while the standard offering at the moment to every home is 500 megabits per second, which means that whether you're on an island or on the mainland, you have to get a minimum offering of 500 megabits per second, and that's absolute in the contract. I think it'll be very difficult to provide that without doing it through a fibre-based technology and solution. But let me make it crystal clear, the actual offering that is being delivered to every home at the moment is actually 10 gigabits. So potentially any home that is connected to the National Broadband Plan fibre cable today can, if they're willing to pay for it, get a 10 gigabit service. And I would expect that people on the islands would get the same opportunity to avail of that if they so wish. Now, that can only be provided through a fibre solution. And we as a committee will be holding the Department of Rural Affairs and the Department of Communications to that commitment. Just finally, if I could maybe focus my questions to Mr. Walsh in terms of the whole area of energy. It's an issue that is very close to my own heart. When I was appointed Minister for Energy in 2016, one of the first challenges that we had to deal with was the loss of electricity supply to Inisheer and Inishmaan. And I was on Inisheer and seen firsthand the challenges that were there and the generators that had to be brought in. And as Minister, I insisted, against the advice, I insisted on Ireland being one of the signatories to the EU Clean Islands initiative. And thankfully, and Mr. Walsh has referenced it, as has Ms. Morden in their initial contributions. And I think there is huge opportunity there in developing that initiative with the support of the European Union. But maybe, Mr. Walsh, if you could elaborate on what is happening in terms of the islands in relation to that initiative. You know, what type of technology is being used? What are the opportunities there for the other islands? And I think in that context, it's also important that when we're looking at electricity supply to our islands, that we're not just looking at supply coming from the mainland out to the islands. Because now with the development of our offshore renewable energy potential, there will be a significant amount of supply coming from the islands back into the mainland. And it is imperative that we look now at developing the cable network to our offshore islands that has the capacity to actually supply the mainland, rather than, which was historically the case, only supplying the demand on the islands. So maybe if Mr. Walsh could come back on that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thanks for the opportunity to speak about this. Like, it is very close to our hearts in Cogal, and we do believe that the islands would be excellent test beds, especially for energy. So in the past few years, like, we're in the second kind of team for the Clean Energy for EU Islands. There was a team set up maybe 3 years ago, and they ran their 3-year contract, and there's a new team in at the moment. So in the first round, we actually did a lot of work with them. And I know down in the West Cork Islands, we had a number of webinars in 2020 trying to get the 7 West Cork Islands to work together. So we're actually working on that at the moment. But what it did, it actually brought a partnership together, and it kind of focused on the island. So we had Sustainable Energy Ireland working with us. We had Cork County Council's energy people working with us. And then we had the Clean Energy for EU Islands. So what it does for us, we find that when the Clean Energy for EU Islands, when you're talking to the likes of Sustainable Energy Ireland or the Council, when they see a European partner involved, it makes them more, or it's easier for them to step up. So like I said, we had Søren Hermansen, who would be the manager of the Samso Energy Academy, and Samso Island in Denmark would be seen as the energy island of Europe. And I suppose Søren Hermansen would be seen as one of the leading kind of advocates for renewable energy probably in the world. And again, he was saying that to make islands sustainable, this is the major issue. He said it's not anymore in the past, like we looked at energy, that it was a good thing to do and that we should do it. But now it's an ultimate thing. Like you just, the cost of it is soaring, as we all know. And we have to bring this to Ireland. So the technology that we're looking at here, we actually work with Sustainable Energy Ireland, and I have to say they're a great organisation to work with, like fabulous people there, and they know what they're doing. So we actually did an energy management plan, and we're supported by an energy mentor to do that. On the EU side of it, then we applied to the Clean Energy for EU Island Secretariat, and instead of a cash payment, they actually would give you experts. So experts in procurement, experts in different technology. So we're actually looking here, first of all, is the houses. Like, so we done a range of BR studies on houses on the island over the last few months, and then taking the information we got from there, we're looking at retrofitting houses. So the grants are after coming at the exact right time. But again, the issue of making it justifiable in islands, you just need that extra bit to make it work. We're also looking at technology. We actually have a dry dock on Bear Island, and they take in boats up to 50 metres, like for maintenance and painting. So they actually have to come on board with us as a partner. So it's kind of a whole community. It's between the local authorities, the energy, the business community. We have UCC involved, and then we have the Clean Energy for EU Islands. So I think you need that mix. Again, on the islands working, it's not something that one organisation can do on their own. So the dry dock, to actually dry the boats before painting, they're looking at a combined heat and power plant. They're already after putting, I don't know, 50 megawatts of solar on the roof, and I think they're actually doing more of that. We're also looking at wind, and we're also looking at technology that you can take heat from the sea through a heat pump type of system. So they're the kind of technology we're looking at, but it's huge. Like, even like there's talks about electricity cutouts over time. So like we're looking at microgrids, and that was a great way to get the support of Samso Energy Academy, because they have studies done on microgrids. Like there's microgrids on, like just for example, the marina and Samso that would suit a small island that has its own grid. And I agree with the chairperson there, that we shouldn't always be looking at bringing power in. We should be looking at power out, and the cable system going to islands is out of date, and it does have to be upgraded if we're allowed to produce power and sell it. You know, there's communities that I visited in the Orkneys, in Denmark, in Sweden, that are selling power. Like there's one community in the Orkneys they're actually selling the power, and it's actually paying for an out-of-hours ferry service. It's paying for different projects on the island for different community and leisure facilities. So that's a great way to sustain the islands, I think. So if you have any questions, I'd be delighted to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. We're just discussing here, the members might think that, you know, that income generated could pay for an air service. Anyway,